you get ourselves all back together. Now, this is where I get super pissed off because this is potential just slowly getting wasted away. That's over at the men's side. So, what can we say about USA men's? Look, let's say straight up, coming out of Dubai sevens. All right, made it at least to the quarterfinals. South Africa topping it last week at Dubai sevens. Argentina number 2, New Zealand number 3, Fiji, Ireland, Samoa, Australia, and USA at 8. France, Great Britain, Spain, Canada to follow up after that in the rankings. So we saw going to the quarterfinals, USA had a favorable pool, was able to at least make it to the quarterfinals, and then they kind of fell apart as it ended, and then we ended up in ultimately in 8th place for Dubai 7. So you'd hope, okay, we're increasing, and there's a little bit of excuse. We're still missing power players like Perry Baker. If he's coming back, I feel like he's waiting for injuries and picking his point in time. We got new guys that are in a sense. Looking at the roster, we got guys that came back. Obviously, we talk about Madison Hughes, Malachi Easdale, Aaron Cummings, Ben Pinkelman. These are veterans, all right? Guys have been in the Olympics before. We've seen them do the work before. We know what they're capable of, and that's not even including guys like Marcus Tupola in that one. And then the rest of it is kind of like, again, you're figuring out this new class. The problem with doing this is that we had like 3 years to figure out a new class, and we still ain't figured out the new class for this one yet. And I don't really feel good about that. And it's starting to show on the field because you get guys like Malachi Easdale, Madison Hughes that are dynamic players. And honestly, for this USA men's team, it is an athletic team. This is a legitimately athletic team. So by all measures, they should be better. It should be much better. But this week, they just got worked. So they had Pool A. They were part of Ireland, South Africa, Great Britain. Now, for me, I thought that there was a chance for them to come out of this pool at least number 2. I figured South Africa was going to come out number 1. That was pretty obvious. South Africa is a dominant team when it comes to 7. It's a dominant program across the board. We know it. Ireland has been increasing substantially since 2019. All right. Obviously, we saw what they did with 2015 up until the Rugby World Cup. And but Ireland Sevens has actually been like legitimately improving over the last 5 years. So I knew that would be a challenge. And then there was Great Britain, where I was like, they're still work in progress, right? Like, you don't know what they're capable of doing fully yet, but you don't feel like they're getting their footing all the way through with it. So it was just like, I don't know. Like, I didn't feel like the U.S. would be incapable of getting out of the quarterfinals because it's been so long since we've not made a quarterfinals in 7s. So I figured it would go, but no. This was not one that we had a good look at. And looking at the other pools, Pool B, we had Fiji, Argentina, France, Spain. I figured Argentina and Fiji were going to come out of that one. France is just not powerful enough on 7s right now. I don't know if they got DuPont yet, but they got to work their way through. And then Pool C had Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Samoa. So Australia, New Zealand was probably where it was going to come out from in that one that I figured. Samoa and Canada were going to be the odd ones out on when it came to it. Well, y'all, the USA absolutely shit the bed on this one. And absolutely watching the talent potential just drop because of lack of synchronization, poor tackling. So let's look down what the rounds were. So straight up off the bat, they took on Ireland again. A young Ireland team. And hold on, I give it up for Cameron on this one. Cameron Purrier, and I'm actually going to answer his other stuff because he's been legitimate on this. He was saying initially USA Women Rugby Sevens have been turning up for sure. And he was like, facts, plenty of youngish talent out there in the circuit college who can ball. Never made sense to me that the best athletes don't get a shot. There's realness. And I don't know, obviously there's systems that go to it. But looking at this with Ireland, with the USA rugby team for this round of Cape Town, kicking off with Ireland, 31-0 molly-whopping by Ireland, absolutely taking it up the middle. and just taking advantage of poor tackling. All right, cool, bet. That's one off the board. Came back in against round 2 against South Africa, 26-14. Yo, what? Okay. Again, a better game, kind of closing, but a better game off of that. But this is the one that shocked me most of all. Losing 26-31 to Great Britain. As I said, Great Britain is trying to get themselves together. This is England, Wales, Scotland. All right. They don't play with each other all year round. This is only for international sevens, basically Olympic sevens teams, that they all come together as one. So for them, they literally have to have time to mesh. I don't care what the talent is. They need to have time to mesh. The U.S. have at least had 2-3 years to be able to mesh together and get themselves. They should be beating Great Britain. So, of course, we don't make it into the quarterfinals, and we're immediately pushed down into the 9th place semifinals for it, where we take on who? Great Britain once again. Great Britain. And we lose to them back-to-back 21-14. And like I said, I want to talk positives. Like I said, they're an athletic group. It's an athletic group of guys. Like, they can play. If you give them a break, they can ball. But my God, the defense is like Swiss cheese. Them dudes be grabbing up above the shoulders, very poor at the lower leg tackle, not making the chase downs, not getting the angles they need to. It is like literally watching, I'm not going to say remedial because it's not remedial. They're better than remedial, but it's very poor defensive rugby. I feel like they work so much on trying to be able to make the ball movement, keep connection, get playoffs, get the kicks, because Madison Hughes be kicking. Madison Hughes be doing what he's supposed to do. And him at scrum half definitely is a very big difference maker versus anybody else that's there. But my goodness, like, you know, this one wasn't, they just are missing when it counts. And so it creates big breakaways for this for teams. And of course, we finished in the 11th place finals against Samoa, beating Samoa 24-19. You know, literally the consolation prize of it all. So it's hard to be able to take it because, again, the fear is what's going to happen when the Olympics comes along, right? Like, the Olympics is where we need to be able to figure out our stuff most of all. And that's where we're trying to get to. Let's actually make a push. We've finished 8th and 9th in the Olympics, 2016 and 2020, 2021, respectively. You know, then the Rugby World Cup sevens finishing at 10th, 9th, 10th again for the Rugby World Cup sevens, and a possibility for one moment, split moment, Perry Baker putting it on to the retirement, which I think is awful. That's awful. Final standings for the men's side ends up being Argentina, South Africa, Fiji at 3, New Zealand, Ireland, Australia, Samoa 4-7, France, Canada, and then finally USA at 10, dropping to 10th, two spots to 10th behind Canada, and then Great Britain and Spain to follow it up. So let's get to some of the responses up here because, hey, my boy Cameron was out here doing his thing. So he makes a mention. All right, let's hit that first one. All right. So Cameron goes, hey, why do you think South American rugby doesn't get a lot of publicity, support, even though their history is deep-rooted, plus plenty of success, mainly speaking of Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay? So for this one, I really think it's actually kind of important to take into consideration that we're talking about a money game versus like historical. So in one instance, yes, there has been instances of history where you've seen success for these, particularly I'll say from Argentina and Chile, Uruguay a little bit more, and Paraguay is kind of coming up. Uruguay coming up a little bit more, but Paraguay, but Argentina definitely. When you look at like who's also being able to make maneuvers, it's hard. Argentina has a really big leg up. Like I learned a lot this week about what Argentina is capable of doing. And a lot of the fact that their clubs are like legitimate clubs. Like these are 100-year memberships that have been going on. I mean, these are guys who may or may not be still living in Argentina and are paying into it. So they're able to produce the best constantly, even through the private, are able to produce the best because they don't have to. There's not much required from the players, but there's so much loyalty from the alumni that are part of it. So you start to see their rise. And obviously, Argentina has been the power play for South America. Now, when you talk about Chile, Uruguay, and I would actually replace Paraguay and put in Brazil for that one. Again, you talk about what they've been able to do on the next level. So you've seen spot success. I mean, like Brazil beat USA back in 2017, 2016. Uruguay obviously is having their ascension and they've been up and down with it, but always been a kind of consistent force with it. But typically, whenever you've seen them at the biggest level, they just haven't performed. We saw Chile in the Rugby World Cup, hard workers, but did not actually like finish up. In sevens, hard workers, but didn't actually finish up. So I think what you're just getting is that they have not been able to get as much attention. One, money into the programs. That's always a thing. How much investment has gone into it. And number two, it's then performing when it matters most. Not necessarily all the point, but when it matters most. But I think you're very right that South America has actually been very, very progressive in their rugby. And I think we're starting to see a little bit of that coming out of it now. And then you talk about Cameron Puryear also talks a little bit about more Central and South American teams on the rise, Brazil, Mexico, Caribbean teams, which I talked about Brazil. I do feel like they should be on that list over Paraguay. I feel like it makes sense to embrace American rugby and improve fixtures with American teams. Again, it goes back to the mindset of it. We're talking South America, North America. If you're talking from South America up, it's all one America. If you're talking North America down, it's North and South America. So you have different governing systems, even though, even with RAN, it's a different system of seriousness that even the U.S. and Canada take versus the Caribbean, Central America, Mexico, and South America take into it. And that's, RAN South, RAN North, Rugby America North, Rugby America South. So again, you can take the theme. I'm a big believer that you need to dominate your continent and then you dominate the rest of the world. But again, this is where attention, this is where money comes in. This is where the investment has to come into figuring out what you got to do with it. And then you start to see the results when it comes to things like the HSBC sevens. This is why I think it's really important that the Challengers Cup is a part of this now, because without the Challengers Cup, you might not have a chance to be able to watch so many teams be able to rise and relegate into these main series so that they can compete and really show what they have to offer. I'll even take it one further on the African side. Like, look at Uganda. Nigeria is about to start making their big ups. Obviously, we know a lot about Kenya. We know about Namibia from 15s. Madagascar with sevens. These are teams that don't get a lot of attention because they're just not put on the biggest stage. But you need to have things that allow it to relegate up. So that's where you get to show it. And then, of course, you talk about USA Sevens, in your opinion, being the best marketing for the sport. I don't know if it's necessarily the best, but it's the most convenient. I do think that multiple games in one day can be very exhausting for a natural crowd, and it's easier to be able to pinpoint a team to be able to do it. And albeit the game is quicker, but I think that can be the curse and a blessing that goes with it. So I think it works as long as we're winning. Whenever we're not, I think it just pushes it down into irrelevance. And then on a world stage, it continues to just kind of undermine the development that can actually come. So, we'll see what happens with that kind of moving forward with what goes on in rugby, especially rugby in this side of the world. Anybody say I can't, I say I ain't convinced. Round in the city, black out the tents.